Hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first video. Also, hello if you subscribed and you forgot because I haven't uploaded a video in so long, so you're like, who's this person in my feed? Hi, my name is Brittany. I used to make videos about books. I'm trying to make some again. 2020 is over. That's good. I missed my 1-year booktube anniversary. It was January 12th, I think, is when I posted my first video on this channel. But yeah, so I missed that because I was too tired to deal with getting out of my pajamas. It's been a long time since I sat and talked into a camera, so it might take me a minute to get more used to it. So hi. But yeah, today's video, now that I've talked for an hour, I'm gonna be doing my favorite books of 2020. Yeah, I don't know that I have an actual order for these because some of them I just love them so much that they've become like some of my all-time favorite books that I've ever read in my entire life. And then others I just really liked, and you know, I think that they're worth mentioning and worth recommending and talking about, because like I did a really bad job of reviewing books and wrapping things up. So yeah, I guess without running my mouth much more, I'm going to jump into talking about some of the best books that I read in 2020. Okay, if you see me looking down, it's because I am looking down at my iPad, because I literally don't remember what I read. I mean, I remember like my favorites, but other than that, let's see. The first book that I am going to mention is one that I actually did do like a decent job of like wrapping up and talking about on this channel when I was done with it, and that is The Dutch House, and that's by Ann Patchett. I freaking love this book. I read this pretty early on in the year, and honestly, it was so beautiful. I feel like I read it pretty quickly. I read it like physically along with listening to the audiobook, and honestly, it was just so wonderful. Now this, I have mentioned, is not a plot heavy book at all, so if you can't read a book where like basically nothing exciting is happening, it's just like watch these characters from a young age until an old age and see how they change and develop and some of the things that happen in their life, then this is not going to be for you. But if you do love character studies and families, and especially like a brother-sister relationship, book is perfect for you, because Patchett's writing is so beautiful, and it's just the right amount of like straight to the point with just beautiful, I won't say flowery writing, but it is really pleasing like to read it and hear it. And yeah, the book is about a family, mostly about a brother and a sister who grew up living in this giant mansion that their father was able to buy because he did really well in real estate, and the people who owned it before them were Dutch. That's why it's called The Dutch House, and they had to sell it kind of like it was, and so all of their things are left there. So these kids have grown up with all these like portraits and paintings of these people that they don't know, and this big beautiful house that doesn't really make sense in the neighborhood that it's in, because when it was built there wasn't a neighborhood. And yeah, it's just about that house, it's about that family, and it kind of, the garage door's opening, sorry. I don't remember what I was just saying because I got cut off when my husband opened the garage door. So anyway, yeah, it's about this family, and it's about holding grudges or not holding grudges, and like what actually shapes us and what's important to us and what motivates us, and how different people have different ways of dealing with that stuff. But yeah, it's really beautiful. I love it. I got it for my mother-in-law for her birthday at the beginning of January, because she likes to read, and it's a truly beautiful story that almost I feel like anyone could enjoy or even relate to. So another one of my favorite books that I read in 2020 is going to be Where the Crawdads Sing. That's by Delia Owens. I definitely talked about this one at probably the very beginning of last year, so like almost a year ago, I think. Anyway, I love this book. You've probably heard of it. Everyone's heard of it. It's extremely popular and it deserves to be. It's really beautiful. Now this does have a story to it. It's kind of like a dual timeline story. There's the story of the main character, of her. She's known as the Swamp Girl because her family lives in the swamp area. They're all very poor. And she basically is abandoned by each member of her family, like one at a time. And before that, her father is like an abusive alcoholic and he's kind of the last one to go, surprisingly. But her mom has a mental breakdown, it seems like, and just kind of, she walks out one day and then slowly the kids go. So yeah, this takes place in like the 60s and then kind of onward. Very interesting because they are very poor, and so you see kind of the classism and you definitely see racism. The black people in this book are, I mean, they have to live in like they live in a totally separate like town that's just black people that they made themselves. They're really the kindest, only good people you see in this story. You can tell that Delia Owens is a scientist because she definitely knows a lot about the creatures and the plant life of the marsh, you know, which is good because she's writing for Kaya, who is also the marsh girl who learns all this stuff from observation. She's not formally educated because she was treated really poorly when she actually was forced to go to school by like the social workers, because of course her, you know, parents didn't send her to school before they disappeared. So, but she doesn't let that stop her from learning what she's interested in, which is where she lives. She loves it. She loves the birds, she loves the bugs, the fish, everything, and she catalogs it all, and that so she puts that in there. But also there's like a murder mystery plot as well as just Kaya growing up, and it's sad, and it's definitely got some trigger warnings in there, especially for like sexual assault and stuff like that, and of course abuse from a parent. But it's just really beautiful. I couldn't believe that it was possible to be so nerdy about the biology and the wildlife that lives in the marsh, while at the same time writing just the most beautiful atmospheric story. It's so good, and it's very southern. So if you don't like southern stories, you won't like it. And if you do, or you don't care,
news about southern.
Okay, my phone just said southern. Okay, so yeah, that's one of my favorites. Another favorite book that I read last year is going to be The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. And also this book is everywhere. It's very popular. It won the Book of the Month, Book of the Year, and it is deserving of that. I'm so glad that people voted that way. I love Britt Bennett. I loved her first novel, The Mother, so much. She's so young. She's younger than me, and her ability to make you care about people within, you know, a few hundred pages is just extremely rare. And this book's so beautiful and important, and it's very good that it happened to come out in 2020 when a lot of white people needed to read it, because, you know, it was everywhere. It was really well advertised by her publishers, and it was picked up by book clubs, you know, I think like Reese's book club maybe. But anyway, a lot of white women, and it's good that this was there in their face to remind them to read it. It's so beautiful because it does talk about race, and it's nice to just let people of color have a freaking platform to talk about it in whatever way they want, you know. So The Vanishing Half it's a look at two sisters, and the whole book is really about it's about identity. It's about choices. And so these sisters are twins, and they are from a southern town that was created by a light-skinned black man, and that's really what matters there, is how light your skin is. So the sisters are so light that they actually are white passing. When they're like 16 or something, they decide to run away from this tiny town that they know they can't grow and flourish in, so they leave and they go to New Orleans, and that's where their lives kind of split. So we have one sister who is white passing, and she decides to take that identity on. She is mistaken as white woman, and she's like, yeah, I'm totally a white woman. And so she is like, well, I obviously can never speak to my sister again, or I can't live this life. And so we follow her later in like the second half of the book. She marries a white man. She has a daughter who we think is white, or she thinks is white. You know, her family that she marries and her daughter, they have no idea of her actual ethnicity or race. And so we follow her life, and then also we follow the other sister who went a different route. She fell in love with a black man who was not just black, but he was dark skinned, and they have a daughter, and their daughter is dark skinned. And so something happens and she leaves this man, and so they move back to the other town that they're from, her and her dark skinned daughter. And it's about the sister, but it's also about her daughter. You know, life's hard for her there. Her skin's dark, and these people don't treat her the same because of it. Just Britt Bennett's writing is just so compelling. Like, you just want to keep going, like, and you just really do care about the characters, even the side characters. And it's a really good and like I said, very timely look at colorism and just how differently people are treated, once again, based on the shade of their skin. And this is something that has been going on for forever. Next book that I loved so much in 2020 is A Long Bright River by Liz Moore. It is my second Liz Moore novel. The first one I read of hers, The Unseen World, was pretty popular on BookTube a few years ago, and I loved it. And so I was very excited to pick this one up, but then I read the synopsis of it, and it was kind of I feel like it's sold incorrectly. It's sold as like a mystery thriller, not really thriller, but like mystery, suspense, maybe even detective novel. And like, yeah, that's definitely part of this novel. I mean, that is part of the plot, but as with the previous book I've read by Liz Moore, it's really kind of the least important part and the least prevalent, like, in while you're reading. You're like, oh yeah, this is a thing going on. She's worried about this murder that's happening. But it's about, once again, two sisters, and very different choices that they made and the paths that they took, and the role that nature versus nurture, you know, what really, you know, how much does, you know, each thing, I mean, is addiction genetic? One sister becomes a police officer, and the other sister, she's an addict. And so it's addressing the very real epidemic that we're dealing with in America, especially some of our larger cities, and I know certainly here in the South, the opioid epidemic, and just kind of follow them both, like another broken timeline kind of story. It jumps around a lot, but it's so well done. And so we follow the cop sister and the addict sister, and then you find out there's so much more, and there's this like really interesting family dynamic that we don't know about, and you just discover more and more, and there's a little twist, and you're just like, what? I did figure it out before, but I loved it just as much. And it was, I don't know, this book is really moving and beautiful and not what I expected, and I was really glad, and it went by so quickly. So yeah, another book that I really loved this past year that I have talked about, of course, but I'm going to talk about it one more time. That is Kim Ji-young, born 1982. This is a short little translated novel that is translated from Korean, and it is told as kind of a case study of this woman named Kim Ji-young, which is actually a very, very common name in Korea for women born in this time period, like millennials. She made a lot of really, really good choices with the small things in this book that I know that I didn't even catch because I'm not Korean and because I don't speak Korean fluently and I cannot read this novel in Korean. Therefore, you know, not every single thing was translated. It's just impossible. But the ones that were brilliant. This book follows her. Well, at the start, we see her. She's had a child. She's married. And she kind of has what looks like a psychotic break because she starts speaking as if she were one of the women that she has known in her life. You know, like a friend that they had in college who passed away, and she knows things that only this friend could know. You know, that there's no way, you know, Ji-young could actually know. So it goes from that, and then it just starts from sort of the beginning of her life to where she is now, and it addresses all of the sexism and the misogyny that is just so deeply ingrained into, specifically for this book, Korean culture, but I mean, this can be applied certainly to the US. Just things that girls deal with in things like, you know, how they're expected to dress versus how guys get to dress, things they get away with, you know, the way we're compensated, the way we get into school, the way we get jobs. It's just very timely once again, and it's just, I mean, you could sit down and finish this book in a few hours. It's not long at all, but it's so compelling and so good. If you're a woman, you find yourself getting rightfully upset for Ji-young, but also for yourself, and there's no way that you could read this book as a woman and not recognize some of that in your own life and feel mad. I mean, you do. I'm mad. I have 2 daughters. I'm really mad. You know, this is not the life that I want for them. They deserve better. And I know that this book was really controversial in Korea because it's so outspoken, challenging a lot of the the tradition there. And so I know a lot of people, actors and idols and stuff like that, who were spotted reading this book kind of got some flack for it. And some of them were like, yeah, well, I don't care, like, we need to talk about this book. So I highly recommend that book if you are a woman, but also if you're a man watching this, I think you could learn a lot. And I just think it's a good book for everyone to read, but women especially. It'll make you feel, you'll feel really understood. The next book, it's hard to pick which book because I read all 3 of this series kind of back to back this year, past year. And I guess I'll say the first book's name, but I guess it kind of goes for the whole series. But that's the Daevabad trilogy, and specifically, I guess I'll give it, because I think it was my favorite of the 3, to City of Brass, and that's by S.A. Chakraborty. And this is a beloved on BookTube fantasy series, and it is like a Middle Eastern, I don't even know if it's Middle Eastern so much as like, I think that the mythology is based in Islam. I'm pretty sure. I think they even are Muslim, some of the characters, but it's just so cool to read, not a Western based fantasy. Like, it's amazing. I love the writing, I love the characters. I specifically really love Ali. I think he's so great, but also our main character, our heroine, she's really great too, which is refreshing because I usually do not love female protagonists in fantasy series. There definitely are exceptions, and those tend to be my favorite fantasy books, and this is one. It was just so good. The last book, the end, was pretty gut-wrenching for me. I cried a lot at like what I saw as the unfairness of it all, but like, isn't that life? Isn't that real? Things that never are fair. I have to say, I think one character got the shit end of the stick like the whole time. And I mean, yeah, he was questionable for sure, but he was also super indoctrinated, and the development is real in this character. And if you've read these, you know what I'm talking about. But my favorite character is Ali. I think he's I think he is an Enneagram 1 like me, and you could fight me about that, but you're wrong and I'm right. But yeah, I think it's beautiful. It's so cool to read about Jen and you know, just all these different cultures that are so different from mine and my personal history. I really enjoyed it. You can tell that S.A. Chakraborty is well versed in history of these areas, and even though the actual place, that the city that most of this takes place in is not real, it's absolutely inspired by real places. And yeah, so it's about the Jinn and magic and not knowing that you're magic. So I don't want to give away much more than that because it's so fun to just dive in and go for it. Also, the audiobooks are good for this too. And I would be absolutely remiss if I did not mention 2 nonfiction reads that I really loved. One I'm rereading actually right now because I wanted to tab it up instead of just quickly get through it for a book club. And the first one is going to be Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. You already know what this is about. It's everywhere. It was a movie, but it's really, really special and important to me that I really pay attention and read, and like I said, tab things that I want to remember, go back, because the main case, he does handle other cases, but the one that is focused on the most is in Alabama. And he talks a lot about Alabama's corruption in our laws and in our treatment of Black people until very recently. And I mean, I would say until now it's still happening, especially in the poorer parts, which is where he is. These people are so oppressed. These people are so marginalized, and they've been constantly disenfranchised, and even when things were legal, they were intimidated into not being able to vote.
Yeah, both heart. Heart. It's gone.
What is?
Heart.
A heart?
Heart.
What does that mean? Yeah, I was in the middle of filming and she just came in here.
Sorry.
Say bye.
Bye.
Gotta go with Daddy.
Go, Daddy.
No, you don't have to say that. Just say bye-bye.
No.
Oh, Mommy's gotta finish.
It's not time.
Anyway, pretty sure I was talking about Just Mercy before Clara came in. Yes, so anyway, Bryan Stevenson started the Equal Justice Initiative, which is located, well, that like headquarters is located in Montgomery, which is the capital of Alabama, where I live. And I'm so grateful for him and for his willingness to put aside the fact that this nonprofit, I mean, he's not going to make a lot of money. You know, most people go into law to make good money for their job, and he was like, you know, no, I'm doing it because I see something wrong and I have the power to help fix it. The corruption in our judicial system here in Alabama is so deep, and it is such a big machine. He is so brave. Also, his writing is just so easy to read. Like, it does not feel like you're reading a bunch of cases, even though you're reading about, you know, the cases he's handling, the cases he couldn't help. You're reading about former cases that set precedent, just things like that. But it's written almost like a novel. It's not dry at all. It's not too long. It's actually pretty short. And yeah, they made a movie where Michael B. Jordan plays Bryan Stevenson, and I love Michael B. Jordan. He's so beautiful and talented, and I'm just so glad that this book got really big because wow, it's amazing. And the second nonfiction book that I loved this year, I mean, I liked several, but this one was one of my favorites, and also it was one that left like a really deep impact on me. And I think about her, and I think about the far-reaching just like ramifications of what happened obviously, you probably have guessed, I'm talking about Know My Name by Chanel Miller. Chanel Miller is a wonderful, amazing artist and writer, and she was a victim of Brock Turner, who sexually assaulted her in such a horrible way while she was intoxicated at a college party. I think for a while there it was like the Stanford rape trial, and that's that. For a long time she was not known by her actual name. Throughout the trial she was referred to as Emily Doe, but of course people found out who she was and tried to rake her through the mud. But she's a victim, and she's a really strong, brave victim. So yeah, I think anyone who's ever been a victim of sexual assault or even attempted sexual assault can learn something, take something, heal a little bit from this book, and myself included. This book, I just can't thank Chanel enough for being so vulnerable, and the chance that she could help someone else feel empowered to make a difference. Because even though the judge sentenced Brock to a slap on the wrist, and even though the media and his attorneys and the judge all refer to Brock as, you know, a future Olympic swimmer instead of a rapist, which is what he is, you know, she was like, I'm not gonna let that silence me. You've tried, and you've intimidated me. I mean, they really did make her life hell. And she was like, you know what, I'm gonna speak up, and I'm going to relive this horrific, horrible part of my life that was a span of years. I mean, this is, you know, a trial takes a long time, and it takes a long time to even get to a trial, and then there's the chance of the appeal and all of that, and he gets like a slap on the wrist. But you know what, people in California were pissed, and they voted to recall this judge, which I don't know, I can't remember the last time that has happened, but it was a very long time ago. That is not something that happens, and I am so glad, because he is a piece of he's not a good person, and he does not need to be trying cases, because there's no way that he could possibly be fair. If you're a judge, that's your job. This book is just so good, and I highly encourage you to listen to the audiobook, because of course Chanel's reading it herself, and at the end she does read her victim impact statement, which is what went viral when they published it on BuzzFeed after she read it at the sentencing. And it's hard to listen to it, and it's important to listen to it. I just think that this book's important, and I thank her so much for the strength and the courage to even write it. Another one of my favorite books of the whole year, and this was a surprise to me. I did not see this coming. I had heard about this book over and over and over again over the last few years on BookTube, but it's just not at all something that I ever thought that I would be interested in because of the genre that it's in. But man, did I love it. And it's so short, and I think I listened to the audio book, but I may have read it. I listened to the audio book. I remember now, because oh my god, that made such a big difference. I think I listened to the whole thing in like 2 hours, and that is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. And wow, what a perfect book for what it is. It is so good. I did not expect to love this, and I certainly did not expect it to be a favorite and give it 5 stars, but oh my gosh, I loved it so much. I love the way that it was told. You just feel so uncomfortable and anxious the whole time that you're reading or listening in my case, and that is so hard to do. And then the end, and you're like, yeah, I had a good reason to feel that way. It's just so good. In fact, when you finish it and you go back to the beginning and you read the beginning again, you're like, oh my gosh. And I know that if I read the whole book again, that I would get so much more than I got the first time, because I was just seeing the top level. I think this is his first book too, which is so unfair, the talent. It's so good. The reason I read this is because I was like, you know what, I've been saying I wanted to watch the Netflix movie that came out that I was very excited about. And so I was like, well, I obviously want to read the book before I watch the movie. So I did, and then a few days later I watched the Netflix movie and by Charlie Kaufman, and I, spoiler, did not like that movie at all, but I freaking love the book. I would definitely recommend the book over the movie if you're gonna pick one. Definitely go with the book. Okay, I am very confident in saying that this is the best book that I read, not only all of 2020, but maybe in most of my life. The impact that this one had on me, the way that I was able to read a very large, dense literary fiction, historical fiction book in such a short amount of time. I literally read it in like 2 days. It says a lot. And the fact that I just think about it so much now, and that it prompted me to do a lot of research and read a lot of nonfiction to learn more about this book, says a lot. And I think that's why I have to give my #1 top book of 2020 to Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee. And it's such a crime that I did not read this book until this year, because I've literally had it since it came out in 2017. I ordered it as one of my like earlier book of the month choices, like when I first joined, and it's just, I got it because #1, it sounded good, but also the cover is just so beautiful, and it just sat on my shelf collecting dust for so long. I let it sit there, and then when I picked it up for, thank God, the Koreadathon this year, I was just, oh my gosh, I was like blown away by how powerful the book was. I mean, honestly, I felt so much reading this book, and it is about, I should probably tell you what it's about. It follows a whole family, basically. It's a Korean family, and it starts during the Japanese occupation of Korea. It starts in Korea, right outside of Busan, and it goes from there. It is so good and sad and beautiful, and talks so much about family and like culture and like your identity and like how much that affects you and how that influences you. And it also deals with a lot of the atrocities that Korean people face during the occupation. It only touches on some of the stuff. If you do, like I said, like more research afterwards, it's just heartbreaking. It's so beautiful, and it really is just like a multi-generational story. There are some absolute heartbreaking moments in it too, because you really care about these characters, and they're so real. Like, you feel like they're real people. It's so sad to think about the people who lived in Korea during this time that were taken to other lands, and then, you know, they never got to go back home, some of them. And then, you know, some that were in southern part of Korea when it split, and their families still were in North Korea, and they never got to see their families again. It's just a lot. It's just so sad, and it's true. It's real. And Min-Jin Lee does such a spectacular job just taking a little slice of that awful part of history and showing us a glimpse into one, you know, fictional family. But I'm sure this story is so relatable for so many real families. I will read anything she writes, anything. So those are all of my favorite books that I read in 2020. I meant to read 50 books, but I only read 46, and that's okay. 2020 was really hard. And yeah, it's just been hard all around, and I know it's like that for everybody. And you know what? I'm proud of myself because I read anything at all. Yeah, and I'm proud of you for, I mean, even if you didn't read. If you're watching this video, that means you're at least interested in books, or me, in either case. We deserve a round, because we made it, and we're still fighting, and we're gonna have a better, I don't know how to say better 2021, maybe, but at least a better future. So I'm hopeful, and I am so happy that I was able to read these books. Some of these really helped me get through this crap year. If I mention one of your favorite books on my list, please let me know. I would absolutely love to know the things we have in common reading wise. And if I didn't mention a book that you think I should read this year, please let me know. I'm very excited to, you know, be recommended things to read in 2021. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, especially because I am back from the grave. I'm a vampire, so appreciate you guys sticking around for my second birth. And I can't promise you a schedule. I don't know when the next video is going up, but I'm going to try to film it tonight, so at least it's there. But I appreciate you for watching me sporadically post videos. It's amazing, and I am so happy to be part of this community and get to know you guys. As always, my links for other social media where I am actually alive more often, like Twitter, Goodreads, Instagram, those are down in the information box. So yeah, if you're not subscribed, I mean, it would be cool if you did subscribe. Leave a comment, leave a like, let me know that you watched this. And I love you guys, and I will see you again hopefully very soon. Goodbye.